I'm going to teach you how to calculate a subject to real estate deal, a real estate acquisition strategy that allows you to buy a house not by getting a loan from the bank and without using cash. No, instead, you just take over the seller's mortgage. 60% of all homes in America have a mortgage, and 80% of those homes have a mortgage rate of 2, 3, 4, or 5%. That's a great rate, and that means that 1 in every 2 homes everywhere that you see is a candidate to be bought with subject to, without using any cash, credit, or credentials. Wait, who do I sound like right now? I sound like Pace Morby, the Pace Morby, the king of creative, the saint of sub 2. Pace Morby has acquired over 1,000 properties using subject to. But how does Pace calculate a subject to deal? In this video, I'm going to go through break down each step that Pace Morby uses to underwrite a subject to deal. And by the end of this video, you'll be able to see a house, see a sub 2 deal, and immediately know just as good as Pace Morby if this is a good deal or a bad deal. So whether you're a real estate wholesaler, a lender, or an investor, this video will teach you everything you need to know on how to calculate a sub 2 deal, just like the man, the myth, the legend, Pace Morby himself. Hey everybody, my name is Maximilian Deer. I've been investing in real estate since I was 18 years old. I own a 7-figure wholesaling brokerage here in Dallas, Fort Worth, and I'm a self-proclaimed Pace Morby fanboy. I've watched hundreds, if not thousands, of Pace Morby's videos, and I am the #2 ranked person in Pace Morby's Facebook group. With almost 150,000 people, I have 54,000 points. Just behind Pace Morby himself with 64,000 points. I'm catching up to you. Anyways, I know a thing or two about underwriting creative finance deals. This video of me teaching sub 2 math has over 1,200 views. And I've even built my own creative finance underwriting software. So with all that being said, let me teach you how Pace Morby underwrites a deal. I'm gonna use Deal Machine to find me a great potential subject to deal. Let's pull a list of pre-foreclosures with an interest rate less than 5%. And let's do a VA and also let's do FHA loans. Why? Because these buyers put only 0 to 5% down as their down payment, meaning they have a much higher chance of being low equity, which means that the debt will be similar to the value of their property, allowing us to just take over their loan and not have to give them a lot of cash for their equity. We have 22 properties that came up in Dallas, Texas. Let's choose one at random. Okay, so let's take this house for example. The estimated value is around $300,000. They have a current mortgage. The house was bought in 2021 and now has a current mortgage of $230,000 at a 2.8% interest rate. And they also have a second mortgage of around $10,000. To me, it looks like they did a loan modification and tacked on the debt to the end of the loan in 2051. I'll explain that later. And now with Deal Machine, what's so cool is you can click right here and the homeowner's phone number is right there. So we could call the homeowner and pitch them a subject to deal. But what should we offer? What would Pace Morby offer? Well, let's do some math. Alrighty, so we have a house that is worth approximately $300,000. It has debt of $230,000 at just 2.8%. So if you're Pace Morby and you see this house, what is the first thing that Pace Morby thinks about? Well, let me tell you what he doesn't think about. He doesn't think about the price. Pace Morby is a long-term investor. He's not buying properties to fix and flip. He's not buying properties to refinance out in 3 or 5 years. He is buying properties and then holding on to them until he dies. He is building generational wealth for his family. To Pace, price is just one of the 5 terms that matter in any real estate deal. When you buy a house, there are 5 main factors. One is price, but the average person, they think price is all that matters. Well, number 2 is your down payment. Okay, some people look at down payment. Number 3 is the rate, the interest rate. Okay, I guess some people care about the interest rate too. Number 4 is amortization. It's the length of a loan. How long are you paying off that debt over? 10 years, 15 years, 30 years. And then number 5 may surprise you because it's not too common, especially in sub 2 deals. It's more common in seller finance deals. And that is, maybe you've guessed it. Let's see if you get it. It is balloon. If you're a little bit confused about balloon, don't worry about it for the sake of a sub 2 video. So these are the 5 terms that go into any negotiation. And which is the most important? Well, you would think price would be the most important. Then maybe down payment. Then probably followed by rate, then this, and then this, right? Well, not to Pace Morby. Pace Morby cares, number one, above anything, about the interest rate. He wants low rate debt. The number 2 most important thing to Pace Morby in a sub 2 deal is actually amortization. Interesting. Number 3, it's not price, guys, it's down payment, and then followed by price. Like I stated earlier, balloon is not really in a sub 2 deal. That's only in seller finance. And I'm just going to tell you right now, balloon is the number 1 most important key in any seller finance deal. To me and to Pace. A short-term balloon just sucks. And that's why Pace says balloons are for clowns. So in this order, this is how Pace Morby looks at a sub 2 deal. And that's how I want you to look at the sub 2 deals. So we have this house. What should we care about? Number 1, the rate. Is it a good rate? Yeah, that is a good rate. Number 2, what's the amortization? It's a 30-year loan. That is amazing. Number 3, what's the down payment? Oh, what the heck? How do you figure out the down payment? That is what I'm going to teach you to calculate right now. The mistake that most of y'all are making is you're immediately focusing on the price. You're focusing here, you're focusing there. No. Check to see if the rate is good. Check to make sure the amortization is 30 years. And then focus on calculating your entry fee. Then, and only then, do you worry about the price. Because if you're negotiating a cash deal, a seller finance deal, a subject to deal, if you're negotiating any real estate deal, the more you negotiate, the more you'll learn that price is not what matters. We don't buy homes, we sell solutions. Subject to is just one of the many creative solutions that we have on our tool belt. You get in there and you solve the seller's problems and price won't matter. So how do we figure out our down payment, right? This is the question that we're trying to figure out. How does Pace Morby figure out his down payment? Well, let me first explain that down payment is one of the many things that go into something, guys, that we call an entry fee. An entry fee is your total cost to get into the deal. So an entry fee can include the down payment, and the down payment is the cash, the money, the literal cash that you pay the seller out of your own pocket. But sometimes there's other fees. If you're buying a deal on market, you may offer to pay realtor fees yourself. If you're getting the deal from a wholesaler, you may pay assignment fees. Closing costs is a fee, and that goes into your entry fee. And some investors, they even put their rehab costs as well as their holding costs into their entry fee. But for the sake of this video, we are only going to focus on down payment. Just wanted to make sure y'all understood. So again, for the sake of this video, down payment and entry fee will be used interchangeably, although that is actually not the case. So we have a house that is worth $300,000. It has a mortgage of $230,000. That means that the seller's equity, the difference between the value of the house and the debt, the equity is $70,000.
But wait, Max, I thought you said there was a second mortgage.
Great job. You need to make sure that you subtract all of the debt, all of the liens. So in this case, the seller actually had debt of around, give or take, $10,000 in the form of a second lien. So really, the equity is actually closer to $60,000.
Okay, Max, we did it. So all we need to do, Max, just to be like Pace Morby. I want to be like Pace Morby. All we have to do is just give the seller $60,000 cash, and we can get the house. We can take over the debt, and then I get the house.
I mean, yeah, but I'll tell you right now, Pace would never do that deal.
Wait, what? I thought that's all you had to do.
Okay, guys, now we're getting to the fun part. Pace buys real estate because of what it can do for him, the use of the property. So in order to figure out how much cash we can and want to come out of pocket, we need to figure out how much cash this property can make us and also save us. Taxes. So what Pace Morby would now do is he would calculate the PITI, the mortgage, the taxes, and the insurance. Deal Machine is telling us that the principal and interest is $1,000. And by the way, if y'all want to use Deal Machine, you can get a 7-day, 100% free trial. Use the link in my description below. Click that link and you can get a 100% free trial to try this software. Go pull a list of 10,000 properties that work for subject to, and then go call them, go door knock them. And then if you don't want to use Deal Machine anymore, cancel. Big brain moves. So anyways, go and use my link down below. Deal Machine is absolutely awesome and I'm having a great time with the software. And the skip tracing is free. Double boom. But let's say that you don't have a software like Deal Machine. What you're gonna wanna do is use an amortization calculator, put the original loan balance, not the current loan balance, guys, the original loan balance, the loan term, AKA the amortization, and then you're gonna wanna put the interest rate. Now just click calculate, and it's telling us that the principal and interest is $1,000. Good job, Deal Machine. Guys, now we know. We're Pace Morby. Now we know that our principal and interest, our mortgage payments to the bank every single month is $1,000. This number will not go up and it will not go down. It will stay flat for the next 360 months. But what will change, depending on your state, is your taxes and then obviously your insurance. So we need to calculate those two numbers now. Well, taxes in the good old state of Texas are awful. In this zip code, taxes are around 2.2% of the home assessed value. And we can see that the assessed value of the property is $270,000. But that number, depending on your state, will go up at the time of sale. So to be conservative, just use your purchase price as your tax basis. It's always better to be conservative on your numbers. So what was that jibber jabber I just said? 2.2% of 300,000, which is 6,600, which divided by 12 is... I'm gonna do this in my head. I am obviously gonna be able to do this in my head. Oh, $550 a month. So on this specific house, taxes are $550 a month. Now, we just got to do insurance. And I already know insurance on this house is about $200 a month. You don't need to buy insurance on a seller finance deal, but you are required to have insurance on a sub 2 deal because if there's a mortgage, you need to have insurance. So tough shit. You got to insure your properties. Now, guys, this puts our grand total to a whopping $1,750 in monthly PITI. This is exactly what Pace does on every deal, y'all. He first looks at a property, says, hey, that's a good rate. That is a good amortization. I don't really care about the price right now. Let me figure out what the down payment is, the entry fee. But in order to figure out how much cash I should pay for this house, how much cash is this house gonna make me? So he starts by calculating the expenses, the PITI. But is that all the expenses that go into a property? No. You need to budget for maintenance and capital expenditures as well as vacancy. And if you want to get a property management company, you got to budget for that too. So what I like to do is I say maintenance is 10% of rent, 10%. I say vacancy is probably around 5% of rent. And then if y'all need management, that can cost you around 10% of rent. So right here, you just lost 25% of your rent. So don't fool yourself. Pace Morby says this all the time. If you have a property that has $3,000 in rent and a $3,000 PITI, the mortgage, the taxes, and the insurance, don't kid yourself. You're not breaking even. You're actually losing money because 10, 15, 20, 25% of that rent is gonna go to other expenses. So for the sake of this example, y'all, let's just say that we're not using management and we're gonna say that 15% we're gonna put aside.
15% of what, you ask?
Rent. Let's figure out what this property rents for as a long-term rental. And yes, this is so important. If you want to buy properties like Pace Morby, make sure your property underwrites as a long-term rental. Underwrite it as an LTR, even if your exit strategy is an Airbnb, even if your exit strategy is a traveling nurse housing, or even if your exit strategy is Pace Morby's new favorite exit strategy for 2024, 2025, and probably even 2026, pad split, co-living, affordable housing. Make sure you still underwrite your property as an LTR. So now we need to comp the property and we need to determine what it would rent for. My favorite comping software is Propelio. So let's see what this property would rent for using Propelio. Okay, so using Propelio, we're pulling up comps and I can see that some houses rented for $1,700 or $1,800 that are similar to our house, but these houses haven't really been updated. They're pretty basic. But a nice house like ours is currently on the market for $2,000. And then there was some other properties that actually rented for $2,200 or $2,300. So for the sake of being conservative, I'm just going to take the average and say that we can probably get around $2,000 per month in rent as a long-term rental. So now we know we're Pace Morby, guys. Our property will rent for $2,000 per month, but we have 15% in expenses or $300 a month. And then our PITI is actually $1,750. So we're going to subtract $1,750 here, and we're going to end up with a property that cash flows negative $50. That's negative $600 a year. This property loses money. So would Pace Morby buy a house that loses money? Absolutely. Right now, Pace Morby's brain would just be going all over the place. Few different directions you can take your calculating now. What we could do, guys, here are some different steps. Here are 3 different directions we can take our calculating. Right now, Pace Morby would do one of 3 things. 1, he would calculate a creative dispo strategy, meaning he would underwrite the property as something other than a long-term rental. Maybe this would be a pad split property. Instead of it being 3 bedrooms, he turned those 3 bedrooms into 8 bedrooms and then rent every bedroom out for $800 a month and then generate $6,400 a month in rental income. After expenses and everything, maybe he's left with $4,500. After all expenses are calculated, he may end up with $1,000 or $2,000 a month in cash flow. That's one option. Another option is Pace Morby may wrap this property. I know earlier I said Pace doesn't sell real estate, but he likes to control it. He likes to be the bank. So another strategy he could do is resell the property in the form of seller financing, where he would get paid monthly cash flow. Now, I know y'all are a bit confused, but that's okay. That's not the important part right now. The important part is to know how a property underwrites as a long-term rental, and then just know that Pace may keep it as an LTR, even though it loses $50 a month, or he may try a different strategy in order to cash flow. He would just ask himself,
hey, do I need cash flow right now? Do I want to go through the headache of doing all these complicated creative strategies for some cash flow, or do I mind, or am I okay just keeping this property and breaking even or losing a little bit of money?
So that's the first thing that Pace would ask himself. The second thing that Pace would ask himself is, yo, how much am I going to make on depreciation and appreciation? Properties appreciate, and on average, you're appreciating about 5% a year. So Pace would probably say, hey, in 5, 7, 10 years, what's my property going to be worth if it goes up 5% a year? In 7 years, the house would be worth, it was $300,000, now it's worth $425,000. So Pace is like,
okay, I'm okay losing $600 a month to make $125,000 in the next 7 years.
But that's not it. Pace would also look at his depreciation, how much he saves in taxes by buying the house. To calculate your depreciation, it's actually a bit complex. So for the sake of this example, we're just going to take the purchase price minus the land value, and then we're going to divide that number by 27.5%. This is how you can simply calculate straight line depreciation. Let's say that the land value is 10% of the purchase price. And I'm just going to quickly literally do this in my head. This time I'm not pulling out my phone. It's around $10,000 a year in depreciation. $10,000 a year. We can depreciate our taxes by $10,000 for the next 27.5 years. So sure, I'm losing $600 a year, but I can lower my tax basis by $10,000 $50,000. And Pace, he does something that we call accelerated depreciation. He does cost seg studies to actually increase the depreciation in the first few years that he buys a property. So he could actually lower his taxes, maybe not $10,000, maybe $20, $30, $40, $50,000 in the first year. Oh my God. Lose $600, lower your taxes $40,000, and then get appreciation over the next 7 years of $125,000. This is a good deal. Except we have not talked about step 3. And now we're finally here. How much money do we need to put as our down payment? Guys, everything we just did up to this point, Pace Morby is doing in his head quickly, just like a calculator, before he's worried about his entry fee, before he's even worried about the price of the property. He is doing all these other numbers in his head to get to this point. He is saying,
hey, is this a good rate?
He looks at the interest rate, he looks at the amortization, and before he gets into the price, he starts to try to work out what he can pay as a down payment. But in order to figure out what he needs to pay as a down payment, he needs to figure out how much cash the property can produce him. So he figures out what the expenses are every single month, figures out what the long-term rent is, and then figures out what his cash flow is. If his cash flow is not that great, he starts to think of creative disposition strategies. But at the same time, he's also thinking,
hey, how much is this property going to appreciate, and how much can I depreciate it?
And based off of all these numbers, he then says,
yeah, I really want this deal, and I'm willing to pay a little bit more for an entry fee to get it, or this deal's not that great, and I really don't want to pay a big entry fee.
That is everything that's going on in Pace's head. So let's finally put an end to this calculation. Let's figure out how much we should pay for the down payment, and then let's figure out how much we should purchase the house for. And by the way, if you're still watching this video and you're like,
dude, this is the craziest sub-2 video I've ever seen. This is so in-depth.
Please subscribe to this channel, and please share this video on your social medias with a friend. Just please share this video. These videos take me hours and hours to record, and I do all of my content for free. Many of you who watch these videos do not subscribe, and I just please subscribe. We're almost at 2,000 subscribers, and maybe we're at 2,000 subscribers when you're watching this video. Anyways, let's finish this calculation. As I stated earlier, the seller has $60,000 in equity, but there is one thing we forgot. One thing we didn't think about. She is in pre-foreclosure. She is behind on her mortgage. So therefore, she's going to have arrears. Arrears are back payments that she or he, maybe it's she, maybe it's a he, owes to the bank. And these back payments are PITI. So in order to figure out what her arrears are, we need to see a copy of her loan payoff. But for the sake of this video, let's just say that she has arrears of $10,000, which now puts their equity not at 60, but now at $50,000. So should we pay the seller $50,000 cash? No. And this is when you start to negotiate. If the seller were to sell this house on MLS right now, they would probably list it around $300,000. And I'm telling you, right now the market's not good. So let's just say theoretically in a unicorn world, they received a full price offer. How much would they actually walk away with? Well, usually 10% less after you pay realtor fees and closing costs and buyer concession. So now they're going to walk away with $270. But I'm telling you, this market's not good. They would be lucky to sell their house for $250, $260, $270. So you could see if they were to list their house on MLS, they could likely walk away with no money. If they list the house and the sale doesn't go well, they could lose money. They could maybe have to pay the bank to sell their house. And that is when Pace Morby comes in and offers them a solution. He would say, hey, how much do you want for the house? They would probably say $300,000. Then he would ask them, what do you want to get out of the sale of this property? What do you want to walk away with at close? The seller's probably like,
well, actually, I know I want $300,000, but I actually really just want to walk away, not losing my house to the bank, not entering into foreclosure, not ruining my credit, not ruining my life. I actually just I wanted to get rid of this house, rid of this debt, and it would be nice if maybe I got some money to move. That's all I'm asking for.
Then Pace would say,
okay, what if I take over your loan And what if I solve your problems? What if I hire a professional moving company? They come, move all of your things.
What? You would do that? You would take over this debt that's ruining my life, and you would pay for all my moving?
Absolutely.
Never once did Pace mention price. He solved solutions. And that is what you need to be doing, is solving solutions in your negotiation. Pace goes into these deals, goes into these negotiations, understanding all of the numbers, but never does he discuss price. He looks at the rate, he looks at the amortization, he looks at how much the property can cash flow him, make over time, lower his taxes, and then based off of all that, has a number in his mind that he's willing to come out of pocket. Maybe he doesn't even come out of pocket. Maybe he gets a gator lender to lend to him in second position. But anyways, he has a certain entry fee in his mind, and he gets into these negotiations and he just says, hey, what problems can I solve for you? And when he's solving these problems, he just makes sure that the problems he's solving is going to cost him less than what he wants to put down. So in this case scenario, he would buy a $300,000 house, not for $300,000. He would take over the first position mortgage of $200,000, make those payments every single month. He would take over the responsibility of paying the $10,000 second lien due at the end of the loan. So he would take over a grand total of $240,000 in debt. He would have to pay the sellers. He would have to pay the bank $10,000 in arrears to make their loan current. And then he would have to pay for moving, and moving with a house that small is probably less than $5,000. So in this deal, Pace is out of pocket a total of $15,000 plus closing costs. Let's just say the grand total is $20,000. That is the entry fee. And as you can see, we didn't really give the seller a down payment. Our money went to arrears. Our money went to moving. Our money went to closing. So Pace Morby spent $20,000 of his money to buy a $300,000 house and has agreed to $240,000 in debt, which means that Pace paid $20,000 to get instant equity of $40,000. On top of that, he's getting appreciation, depreciation, and he's adding another amazing property to his portfolio. And that is how Pace Morby underwrites a deal. Now, if you're still a bit overwhelmed, well, firstly, rewatch this video 1, 2, 3, 4, 10 times. But what I'm gonna do is simplify everything we learned in this video down to a 60-second rule. The 5, 10, 12 rule. I created this rule by watching so many of Pace Morby's videos. He looks for an interest rate of less than 5%. He looks for an entry fee of less than 10%, and he tries to get a cash-on-cash return of 12% plus. So what does all that mean? Well, hey, he first looks at the rate. If the rate is 2, 3, 4%, awesome. Then he looks at the amortization. It needs to be long. But the thing is, amortization actually comes into play on your cash-on-cash return, on your cash flow. So as long as the amortization is 30 years, you're good. The next thing he's looking for is he's trying to make sure that the entry fee is less than 10% of the purchase price. In this scenario, Pace came out of pocket $20,000 and bought a $300,000 house. $20,000 is less than 10% of $300,000. So check the box there. So the 5% rule was met, the 10% rule was met, and now we need the 12% rule to be met. And in order to calculate 12% cash on cash returns, what we would do is we would take the cash flow, multiply it by 12, and divide it by the entry fee. Now in this scenario, the cash flow was negative, so we wouldn't have a good cash on cash return. But Pace would take the pad split cash flow, the Airbnb cash flow, the midterm rental cash flow, then multiply that by 12 and then divide that by the entry fee and hope to get a number greater than 12%. If you want to learn more about the 5, 10, 12 rule, I have a link to the video right somewhere here. I explain the whole rule in depth. And if you appreciate this video, again, like, subscribe, share it with a friend, and please make sure to check out Deal Machine, Propelio, and all the other softwares I recommend in the description down below. Thank y'all so much. Pace, I hope you watch one of my videos one day. I love you, man. And hey, I hope to be able to do business with you one day in the future. Thank y'all so much, and I'll talk to you soon.